evening and welcome to the WDSU News Hot Seat. I'm Travers Mackel. Tonight, we are talking about Mayor-elect of New Orleans, LaToya Cantrell, 9 days into office, and the Attorney General, Jeff Landry, has launched an investigation, sending subpoenas to New Orleans, asking for her credit card records. We're going to dissect this entire topic, what it means, and where things go from here. We have a panel tonight, legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Robert Jenkins, and former federal prosecutor and current defense attorney at Jones Walker, Mike Magner. Thank you all both for being here.
Thank you.
First off, right out the gate, what is your initial reaction to this investigation by Jeff Landry? Let's just go right to left. We'll start with you, Mike.
Sure. I think it is a big deal. I think the fact that he is pursuing this through a subpoena means he is making a statement by doing that. I think these same records, since they're city records, could probably be obtained through a public records request, but I think the Attorney General is showing that he means business in pursuing this.
Is it a show of force by the Attorney General, Robert?
Well, it's a show of force, but it's like Mike said, he's very serious. The investigation is ongoing, and it's something that the Cantrell organization to look at, because this could lead to an indictment.
And let's just talk about this. LaToya Cantrell is the mayor-elect in the city of New Orleans. When she was a council member, she made purchases, questionable purchases, on a city-owned credit card. She claims that all of those purchases are above board and she was paying them back just because she wanted to be financially or fiscally prudent, if you will. $9,000, $4,000 of which was paid back when she qualified, or just before she qualified to run for mayor. Isn't it an interesting situation, Mike, when you're dealing with a city credit card and an elected official and purchases that many feel could be questionable?
It is a very serious matter, and certainly the electorate believes so, and now we have the Attorney General also pursuing it. The interesting dynamic is that, you know, they're from two different political parties, and I think the Attorney General would be wise to just be very careful, very circumspect in how he goes about this investigation.
We're going to get more into the politics of this, but Robert, the Louisiana Legislative Auditor also requested the same documents, it's our understanding, credit card information dealing with not just Ms. Cantrell, Mayor-elect Cantrell, but the entire New Orleans City Council. Does the Attorney General usually wait for the Legislative Auditor to wrap up an investigation? Is that common, and is it uncommon that the Attorney General has taken this aggressive stance?
Well, usually, as I understand it, and in the past, they wait for the auditor to go through with his investigation. For the Attorney General to do this is quite odd that they're doing it, and they're doing it so aggressively without anything coming from the auditor. So, yes, it's different.
You're looking at Jeff Landry on your screen right here. He is a Republican. He was a congressman. He is now the Attorney General. Many feel he's got political aspirations beyond his office right now, possibly for governor. I hate to ask this question, but it's on the top of everybody's mind right now. Are politics involved with this? Like Mike touched on, we'll start with you, Robert, and then go with Mike. Is there the element of politics, or given the fact that Jeff Landry, some would say, has been no friend to New Orleans? He has cracked down on things like Sanctuary City. He's gone to war with the mayor on various issues. So are politics at play?
I don't want to believe that the politics at play, but I'm sure it is, in the sense that he's a Republican and she's a Democrat. The fact of the matter is, it started in Orleans where the district attorney recused himself. So he's only doing what the law allows him to do. Well, people look at politics, and I think you can, but he's only doing his job.
How do you feel about that, Mike? Are politics in play here?
Well, I think he needs to do whatever he can to minimize that. You know, he will be perceived as having a political motive, so he'd be very prudent, I think, to try to minimize that to the greatest extent possible, and proceed carefully and slowly, follow the evidence, and see how that takes him.
I guess proceeding slowly is out the window, given the fact that 9 days after she was elected, these subpoenas were signed. Let's talk about this. You guys do criminal defense work, and nobody has been accused. Let's point this out. No one has been accused of any crime here, and the Cantrell camp says everything that they did has been above board. She has stated that since this story broke back in October after the primary election. But is it time to hire an attorney when the Attorney General is looking at you? And you guys have handled high-profile cases. You recently represented a doctor who was charged with rape, who was acquitted at trial. You represented numerous political figures, including Ray Nagin and Aaron Broussard. But is it time for her camp to consult an attorney?
I think we would both agree that that's certainly a good decision on her part, to the extent that we know right now that she has not, but I think she would be wise to consult with counsel.
How do you feel about that,
agree
Robert?
with that. I think it's long overdue. When these allegations first came up, I think that she should have consulted a lawyer and hired a lawyer. Let that person get in front of it. You don't wait to see what they're going to do.
Do you think that if she does retain counsel, and her husband's a defense attorney, and her father-in-law is a judge at Orleans Parish Criminal Court, where you guys both do work, if she does, and we don't know if she will or not, because like I said, we can't stress this enough, LaToya Cantrell and her camp deny any wrongdoing. They say that everything they did at City Hall, that she did, was above board with her credit card spending. But if they do go in the direction, given the fact that the Attorney General and Legislative Auditor are involved, if they do go in the direction of an attorney, what would you advise her, and then we'll get to you, Robert, if she reached out to you? What is your advice as a defense attorney?
Well, I think she needs to get ahead of the story at this point, as opposed to simply reacting to what the AG and the AG's office is doing. I think she should probably pursue a public relations campaign to put the best spin on this and try to equate it to the greatest extent possible to the practices of the other city council members during the same period.
From what you've seen, what would be your advice? What would be your defense to the public when they see things like this, Robert, if she did in fact feel the need to retain counsel?
Well, Mike said it best. I think you should get ahead of it with a public relations campaign first. And then we get her documents, we go down, talk to the Attorney General, and probably, maybe if we sit together, we offer what we call a proffer, and that way she's getting ahead of this. And what that means is whatever she says cannot be used against her in terms of a proffer. But you've got to get ahead of it and let them know that if you're going to go to trial, you're going to be prepared.
What could the Attorney General be looking at? I mean, we've all seen the news stories, and we have done plenty of them on the spending. What is, and look, none of us are Attorney General investigators, but you were a former prosecutor, and Robert, you have defended your fair share of cases, to put it mildly. What is the Attorney General looking for here, Mike?
So I think they'll probably look at the malfeasance statute, also the abuse of office statute under state law. I think those will be the primary statutes that he considers. And I think from Ms. Cantrell's standpoint, she will probably want to emphasize that whatever mistakes were made were simply mistakes, and that she didn't have any kind of criminal intent to violate the law.
Right. Does that work, Robert? I mean, is that if it gets to the point where she has to meet with anybody with the Attorney General's office or explain any of these records, does that work?
Well, absolutely. What she's trying to show, I had no intent to deprive the citizens of this state of that money. The problem that she's going to have is the time period that's involved with when it was paid back.
Some were paid back years later. Let's just point that out. Let's talk about this. The Attorney General does hundreds, if not thousands, of investigations across the entire state. The Legislative Auditor looks at a lot of things in the city of New Orleans as well as the state. These are big deals because rarely does it happen to a newly elected mayor in the city of New Orleans. But is there the possibility that Jeff Landry and Daryl Papora, the legislative auditor, look at this and say, you know what, nothing there, no harm, no foul. We did our due diligence by looking into this, and let's move on?
Well, that's a possibility, and that's why we are saying get ahead of it, sit down, let's talk about this proffer. But the fact of the matter is, not only do you have to worry about the Attorney General, you also have to worry about whether there's going to be a federal investigation going on, and that's important.
You used to be a federal prosecutor. Is the door possibly open to that? Not that you're speaking on behalf of the U.S. Attorney's Office, because you're no longer there. You're in private practice with Jones Walker now, but is there the possibility that the feds are or could be looking into this as well in light of what the AG and auditor are looking at?
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure there's some folks at the FBI out of the lakefront and perhaps at the U.S. Attorney's Office who are looking at this as well. And that takes some of the political aspect of this and tends to diffuse that a little bit. And that might be a good thing for pursuing justice one way or another.
And like I said, Mayor-elect Cantrell and her camp have denied any wrongdoing. They claim that all of these purchases and the reimbursements are above board. So getting back to what I just asked Robert to come back to this, because it's very important, is there the chance that the state's top prosecutor, Jeff Landry, and the auditor look at this and say, look, everything was done above board?
Well, I think it's important to give both parties a presumption of good faith. And Mr. Landry is a trained prosecutor. He has very good prosecutors in his office. And we need to hope and expect that he will follow the law and follow the evidence. And from Ms. Cantrell's standpoint, likewise, to the extent that if mistakes were made, that they were made without criminal intent. So I think both sides should proceed very cautiously.
Really quickly here, because obviously this is a very important issue for the city of New Orleans. She is the first female mayor elected. She has a long transition period here. Do you see this dragging on through the inauguration in May, or is this something that Jeff Landry and the AG and the legislative auditor could and would want to wrap up early? We'll start with you, Robert, and then finish with you, Mike.
I think it's going to drag on even towards the inauguration, because there's going to be a lot of documents that's going to be requested, and there's going to be several meetings should she get an attorney to head off any type of indictment. It could be an agreement that we have a bill of information file, but I think it's going to take a while to do so.
Or there could be the possibility, she denies wrongdoing, that nothing comes from this.
Sure.
What about you, Mike? Do you think this takes a long time, or do you think they do this quickly?
I think they'll take their time. I think it's unfortunate from Ms. Cantrell's standpoint that she has about a 4 or 5 month time period before she's sworn in. That's a lot of time to be looking at this while she's trying to transition into office.
Final question here. You were on the prosecution team that prosecuted former Governor Edwin Edwards. How sensitive do prosecutors have to be with something like this, given the fact that this is a high profile case with the first female mayor, the mayor-elect in the city of New Orleans? Is it safe to say that really all the I's have to be dotted and the T's have to be crossed?
I think so. And also, Travers, they need to proceed like Caesar's wife. They need to be careful. They need to be perceived as being fair and not simply trying to get political points.
Correct.
And I think a good prosecutor would certainly do that.
And they have enough time to do so.
All right. Robert Jenkins, legal analyst, defense attorney. Mike Magner, former federal prosecutor, current defense attorney. That is all the time we have for the hot seat. I'm Travers Macklin. Once again, LaToya Cantrell, the mayor-elect in the city of New Orleans, has denied any wrongdoing. As a matter of fact, she says all those credit card purchases that she made and then reimbursed the city on, everything was above board and that everything is fine in her perspective. Back to you.